Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 28th day of May, 2019. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's remain standing, join together for a brief moment of silence. As we all know, yesterday was Memorial Day. We paid tribute to our fallen heroes, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our freedoms. Let's keep them in our thoughts, and all those who wear the uniform of our armed services, who each day risk their lives to protect us. Let's pause in silence. Please be seated. All right, our deputy clerk is here, Kim Otadi. Kim, would you please call the roll? Present.
Councilwoman Ofsted?
Here.
Councilwoman Scalera?
Here.
Councilman Bouvier?
Here.
Councilman Schivoni?
Present.
All right, before we get started, I'd like to offer a few brief remarks. I'll try to keep it as short as possible, but each year we try to do a bit of a state of the town address and try to update the public and the board on things that are going on. The board is pretty well versed already. I'm going to step over to the podium.
Yeah.
Without the glasses, the state of the town would be blurry, I guess. But no, the state of the town, as you probably would expect me to say, is excellent. Things are going very well. You don't have to take it just from me. Independent agencies like our auditors and Moody's agree that things are going quite well. So Frank, my deputy supervisor, has put together a PowerPoint. Some of the highlights of this brief state of the town is that the town has maintained our excellent credit rating. We've added significantly to affordable housing. We have embarked on a number of significant infrastructure projects, which I'll talk about a little bit. We've made strides to improve our water quality. We have seen a reduction in all major crimes, and we have played a regional role in land preservation, environmental protection, and the advancement of renewable energy resources. So starting a little bit with the local economy, valuation growth, this was a major jump in assessed valuation. We saw a 9.7% increase in assessed valuation in the last certified assessment rolls. So we are now at 73.5 billion total assessed valuation. That was a significant jump, and it's followed jumps seemingly every year. So, and this is across the town. It's not just one sector of the town. Every school district has enjoyed increases in property values. A lot of it from new growth, from additions and new construction, but also from the market trends. As you know, in the last bullet there, we have recently passed the Taxpayer Protection Act that will try to buffer some of those changes for the next 2 years while we look at how this market trend analysis is affecting people on fixed incomes. For 2 years now, we will freeze people's assessment in place even if the market does increase. Our fund balances are very strong. We have seen significant increases in the last 5 years, 54% increase in our fund balance. At the same time, our bonded indebtedness has fallen. We have reduced it by 40% in the same 5 years, some $54 million less in outstanding debt, which is significant. And of course, the assessments I mentioned do help to keep our tax rates down. So every year that, certainly for the last 4 years that I've been in office, we have seen decreases in the tax rates. And I think that's important. All right, moving on to financial management. I mentioned our strong credit rating. This was the third year in a row I've presented to Moody's Investment Services. They have reaffirmed the AAA credit rating we got a few years back. A very strong report. I hope you all have seen it. Talk quite a bit about the town's financial management and policies, including the fact that we have codified some of our practices, like maintaining our fund balances. We have a new debt reduction policy where we take any unanticipated surpluses and we use them to, rather than borrowing that year for anticipated borrowing, we now use the bulk of that money to defray that borrowing and use those surpluses so that we don't have to borrow. That alone has reduced debt by $2.2 million. We've received, once again, I think this is the 7th year in a row, acclaim for our financial policies from the Government Finance Officers Association. We've recognized for excellence. And our independent audit, Naraki Smith, just recently completed. Not only were there no reportable deficiencies, things that they have to tell the state controller, things that have to get fixed, none of those, no red flags, but not even any recommendations for improvement. That's the first I've seen where they couldn't find any areas where we could change something to make it better. So it sounds like the independent auditors believe that we are on the right track in every regard. Housing and community development, of course, creating affordable housing remains one of the biggest challenges we face. And some of the symptoms include the traffic and some of our ordinance enforcement issues. But we are on the road to creating housing. Certainly, we have 80 new units, some about to be finished. So Spion Commons and Sandy Hollow, and then also the 15 units at the Southampton Point, and the few units that we did with the Southampton Business Alliance and Long Island Housing Partnership. Together, that's some 80 units. Most of those are rental, which is the most important area that we need to create. We did pass an accessory apartment law recently. We amended the current law so we would allow accessory apartments on some smaller lots down to half an acre. That is starting to be subscribed. We have 2 already approved, and we have another, I think, 12 that are in process. Newsday wrote a really nice editorial in support of this program. We also received an award. I'll be going into, I think, Westbury with Diana Ware, who's here, and Kara Back will join me. We're going to go to receive an award we're getting for that program from Vision Long Island. It's a Smart Growth Award. They do an annual award. So I'm excited about that. And, we'll have to tweak that program as time goes on, providing additional funding, looking for maybe a private lending institution that will participate in that program and make it even easier for homeowners to take advantage of it through low-interest loans. We also have increased our CDBG funding. This is largely thanks to our housing director, Diana Weir, who's almost tripled the funds. We're up to about $250,000, I believe, in yearly funds, and we're doing some great projects with those funds, including a program in Hampton Bays, the facade and sign improvement, downtown improvements, streetscape type of improvements, and lots of improvements to parks, particularly handicapped access to various facilities. Infrastructure is a big focus for us. I was able to go out during this beautiful sunny Memorial Day weekend and actually enjoy Ponquag Beach with my daughter for a couple hours. The new pavilion is really phenomenal, and people really were just absolutely loving it. And that's just one of the many projects that we have undertaken. Tiana Life Saving Station is coming along beautifully. This is, people knew it as, I guess, Neptune's nightclub, but long before that it had a real important history. Before the Coast Guard even existed, it was a life-saving station, and it was staffed by African Americans, and it'll be returned to its original configuration and serve as a museum. We took on street lighting. We converted all of our street lights to LED street lights, which not only improves safety but also saves tremendous amount of energy. We are in the process of purchasing the senior center in Hampton Bays, which we've been leasing for years, and I think it's a real important part of our community where we run our senior nutrition programs, but also lots of community groups use that building. The Shinnecock Commercial Fishing Dock is now transferred and the town owns it. It was a county asset, but now it's a town asset. And we are really taking a hard look at our infrastructure across the town and trying to plan. And I know this is something Tommy John has been involved with, trying to put together a town-wide assessment of our infrastructure. And also as liaison to the Hampton Bays Water District, Tommy John's been involved with this 10-year capital plan for that facility as well. So we're really trying to make sure that we're properly maintaining our infrastructure. If you maintain it right, it's less expensive than letting things fall apart and then have to replace them. Water quality is a big focus. We now have that 20% for water quality money. We've already spent $19.2 million in water quality improvement projects. Part of that is the residential sanitary systems that we're offering rebates to. Over 100 residential systems now. We've included stormwater runoff projects in Lake Agawam, Sag Harbor Cove, Quantuck Bay, and other places. Wastewater infrastructure project in West Hampton Beach, other projects in Hampton Bays and Sag Harbor. And, you know, on the good news front, and I was able to attend, as many of you were, the Dr. Goldberg State of the Bays, and the first time in 12 years that we did not see a brown tide episode in Shinnecock Bay. So that's good. I think some of what we're doing is working. I want to thank Councilman Bouvier for his leadership on water quality issues. A lot of these things wouldn't have happened without him, and he's been working very closely on these issues. I know you're deeply committed, John, to improving our water quality. Grants, we've used a great team approach to the grant application process. Over the last few years, over $6 million in grants have been received by the town, Good Ground Park being a major area, but even things like the EV charging stations at Ponquag, hundreds of thousands for the Riverside Maritime Park, water quality infrastructure, such as the new water mains that we're going to be providing in East Quogue to deal with some of those issues of those perfluorinated compounds. We just recently received $1.5 million in 2018. A big chunk of that was for the bike path in Hampton Bays, going from Good Ground Park to Red Creek Park. So, Frank has been very involved with these grants, and we also have a grant writer, and it really helps. I mean, it helps keep taxes down, it helps improve infrastructure, and things that we offer to our residents. If we don't have to pay for them, if we can do it with state money or federal money, it's always a good thing. This year, we have applications in for Shinnecock Maritime Park, for the Riverside Downtown Revitalization Initiative, and that's the big one. That's the DRI grant for Riverside, and the Shinnecock Commercial Fishing Dock. Also, we have grants out for work there. Moving on to public safety. As I mentioned, major crimes are down. Last year, we saw a 20% decrease in major crimes. That's like unheard of. That's a really big drop. And this year, we're continuing to lower major crimes beyond those levels. We're seeing roughly about a 10% decrease again. So 20% followed by another 10%. And the year prior to that, the major crimes fell by about 11%, I believe was the number. So this is like a 3 or 4 year trend now where we're seeing this drop in major crimes, and that's certainly good news. And we're thrilled to have our great police chief, Chief Skrnicki, and he's been working really hard on reducing crime and predicting where crimes might occur, using really the best analytics and the best technologies. Our police department pulled 300 bags of heroin off the street in the past year. That's a lot. That's a lot. So we're seeing less fatalities, 68% fewer overdose fatalities in 2018 from 2017, and this year, we're continuing that trend. We've had one fatality, one too many, but we're hoping that that's the only one for the year. So if you go back 3 years ago, 19 deaths from heroin overdoses, opioid overdoses. Then I think last year was 6 or 7. This year, so far, 1. So we are certainly moving in the right direction. We've implemented a school resource officer program. That's been receiving lots of acclaim from the various schools. Enhanced cybercrime investigative capacity. And we're using things like drones to help with surveillance, with help with search and rescue operations. So I believe we have 2 drones now, and we have FAA certified operators for those drones. Moving on to public safety. These are quality of life issues. As you know, we've enhanced our code enforcement operations. It is starting to pay off. We tried to make it easier for people to register concerns and complaints using the SOS system, the Southampton Online Solutions, that was developed by our IT department. It's being heavily used. In 2018, there were 1,307 complaints filed. Already in 2019, we're up to 648 constituents reports filed, just in the first quarter of this year. So we saw almost half the total, about half the total of last year come in just the first quarter of this year. Let's see. We are coordinating on various efforts on code enforcement with the police department, with the fire marshal, the child protective services, social services. So when we do these targets with code enforcement, we're using multiple agencies in those efforts. And we are noticing more violations. In 2018, 915 notices of violation. 2019, just in the first quarter, we're about half that number, 466 notices so far. So if that rate continues, we'll be well over that 1,000 level. The actual number of summonses is down. So that's actually good. That means that people are complying. They're getting these notices of violation, and they're fixing the problems. And that is, that's exactly the way we want code enforcement to work, is to basically get these problem properties fixed so that everybody's quality of life is protected. We've seen a 34% increase in rental permits and increased compliance with the code. And we have this new zombie home program with a ranger to address foreclosures and vacant property issues. Moving on to natural resources. 2019 is off to a good start. Already 60 acres preserved this year. We are trying to foster our goal of 100% renewable energy by the year 2025. One of the things we're using to do that is the board approved a program for community choice aggregation. We're studying that issue to see if it makes sense for the town. That would put us in a bulk purchasing position for electricity. I mentioned the LED streetlights, over 1 million kilowatts of electricity saved annually. We also mandated the use of electric maintenance equipment in our parks, removing 10,000 tons of toxic pollutants. That was through the efforts of Councilwoman Scalera, who led that, starting with the first green park out in East Quogue, Hamlet Green, and then here in town. And then we've been expanding that program so that the Parks Department uses these quiet, non-polluting equipment. So thank you, Christine, for that. And recently, on the environmental front, we banned plastic straws, kind of followed on with our plastic bag ban from years ago, which was sort of groundbreaking at the time. We banned plastic straws, and we banned styrofoam containers, and that was through the efforts of Councilwoman Lofstad. Thank you for that. That was a bold initiative that ended up receiving broad community support, and I know not every business is doing it yet. We have to continue to do some education and some outreach, but I think it's a really important way to reduce pollution, particularly marine pollution. And lastly, I'll mention the South Fork Commuter Connection. I wrote it this morning. I think it's the 3rd or 4th time I've written it. I rode the early train this morning. It was packed. It was great. And a lot of the schools actually weren't in session yet, so it wasn't as packed as it has been in the normal mornings. But it was pretty full. And I've heard there was a day last week where there wasn't a seat available. So it is getting used, particularly the early morning train. It's not a perfect system, but it's really helping people get to work. And the people we talk to, it's changing their life. One woman, she's saving over an hour, hour and a half in each commute in time from what it would take driving. So it's just like she has her life back. She's making friends on the train. I want to thank Assemblyman Fred Thiel, who really has sort of been the engineer or conductor in this, driving this forward. If it wasn't for his efforts, that train would not be running today. And he rode with me this morning, and we had an enjoyable ride. We got on Hampton Bays, and we went all the way out to Amagansett. We got to catch up on some things, but we also got to see people getting to work on the train and really enjoying it. So, in conclusion, of course, always there's challenges ahead. We have a great team to face those challenges. I enjoy working with all of you. Everybody brings different skills to the table, and collectively we seem to come up with some really great solutions for things. The accomplishments we've made over the past year and longer certainly give me confidence. And we have tremendous staff to work with who are very dedicated, and we're very fortunate with our department heads and our town employees. I know a lot of them are really busy this time of year as we gear up for the summer season. So I want to thank you all, and thank you for listening. The state of the town, as I said earlier, is in excellent shape, and we're going to keep it that way. So thank you. Okay, so back to the agenda. I want to make a motion to approve the minutes of a regular town board meeting of May 14th and the special town board meeting of May 16th.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Okay, Sunday, would you read the communications?
Sure.
Kim.
Oh, Kim,
Following
sorry.
communications were filed in the clerk's office from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to
No, they have.
permit applications for parcels in Sag Harbor. Meeting notice from the Suffolk County Planning Commission concerning the Hampton Bays Downtown Overlay District for June 5th, 2019 at 2 p.m. A notice of adoption from the town of Riverhead. We have adjoining neighbor notifications from the Village of Southampton Zoning Board of Appeals and the Village of West Hampton Beach Planning Board. New York State liquor license 30-day advance notices to municipalities were filed from the listed entities, and financial disclosure statements were filed by the listed individuals. Following bid openings took place on May 16th, we had the RFP for the CCA administrator for community choice aggregation, and on May 22nd, we had the removal of abandoned junk and decommissioned vehicles. And the Hampton Bays Water District filed the 2018 Drinking Water Quality Report dated May 2019.
All right, thank you, Kim. All right, so we're going to move on to public hearings. We have 3 public hearings this evening. Kim, would you read the first public hearing notice?
Certainly. Public hearing number 1 to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312-12, Vehicles and Traffic, to authorize stop signs at 2 intersections in the hamlet of Bridgehampton.
Okay, Tom Neely, our Director of Transportation, Traffic Safety, Intermodal Transportation and Traffic Safety?
Very good.
Or do I have it backwards?
That's it? No,
Okay.
that's good. And I might suggest the board, we may want to have both public hearings involving Meadowlark Lane together. That would be up to you, but the second one involves the no parking, or we can handle them separately, whichever you prefer.
Let's do it one at a time.
Okay. Tonight's public hearing involves the enactment of vehicle and traffic regulations on Meadowlark Lane in Bridgehampton. The first proposed amendment to Chapter 312 of the Town Code would authorize 2 stop signs. One of these stop signs is located at the intersection of Sandpiper Lane and Meadowlark Lane, right here. This stop sign was installed at some point in the past but has never been authorized in the Town Code. The second stop sign would be on Meadowlark at its intersection with Surfside, down here. This would be a new installation, and the town engineer has recommended that both be authorized by the town board.
Any board members have any questions for Mr. Neely about those stops? They're all at T intersections. They're all,
Correct.
Well, only in the direction of the T, of the,
Right,
you know,
the intersecting road,
the
right.
intersecting road, right. Okay. All right, is there anyone who wishes to be heard just on this first public hearing regarding the stop signs? Okay, I'm seeing none, I'll make a motion to close.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Kim, would you read the second public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 2, to consider amending Town Code, Chapter 12-24, Vehicles and Traffic, to prohibit parking on Meadowlark Lane, Bridgehampton.
All right, and Tom Neely again will address this.
The second proposed amendment to Town Vehicle and Traffic Law would prohibit parking on both sides of Meadowlark Lane from its intersection with Ocean Road, from its intersection with Ocean Road to its intersection with Surfside Drive. This regulation has been requested by the residents of Meadowlark.
Okay, and I do have a card on this. Irving Schaffer. So just ground rules real quick, Irving, and to all speakers, 3 minutes, we allot you to
I don't
make your
need-
comments
I don't
known,
need-
and
I
We
don't
let you
need
know
3
when you're
minutes.
down to
Just
your last 30.
Irving Shaffrin, 194 Meadowlark Lane, Bridgehampton. We're rounding third base finally to get to this point. So as you may know, I represented 70% of the homeowners who had voted in favor or petitioned the town to take over the street. I thank you all for the effort of getting this thing done. It's thrilling to see it at this point. So yes, we're all in favor of the no parking. The signs are similar to the ones on Sandpiper, I would assume. It says no parking anytime, tollway zone, whatever it has to be done. Please put them up as fast as you can. And again, thank you. And Ms. Fetton, Christine Fetton, is a super employee of this town. The town engineer and her staff, an incredible group, really an incredible group that is on site. I was there with them on the street today. It's amazing to see these people and their dedication. So thank you all, and vote in favor of passing this.
Irving, how's the road coming out? It's almost done, or?
It's one more layer, top layer. It's going on either Thursday or Monday, and I cannot wait.
It's looking good, you're happy with it?
Happy? Yes, I'm happy. My wife isn't happy, but I'm happy. Thank you all.
Okay, anyone else who wishes to be heard? That was the only card I had on this public hearing.
I didn't put a card in, but
You can speak.
I'd like to say something. Hi, I'm Terry Lawfer. I live at the corner of Sandpiper and Meadowlark, and I just want to say, I second what Irving said. The road looks amazing. You've done a great job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for me in particular, the no parking signs are really important because we are on the corner of Meadowlark and Sandpiper, and people do park, have been parking on Meadowlark, which is on my side. For as long as we've been here, it's annoying. It's really important that we have those no parking signs, and I would really hope that you vote in favor of it. And I also want to say thank you to Irving Schafrin, because without him, none of this would have gotten done, and I'm so grateful to his spearheading this effort. The street is so much better. It's really incredible. So thank you for all your hard work, and thank you, Irving, for your hard work.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right. Make a motion to close.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There are resolutions of adoption for both of these on tonight's agenda. just
Okay,
so
now
you
maybe
know.
we'll take them out of order after the public hearings. Okay, Kim, you want to read the last public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 3, to consider certain Community Preservation Fund, CPF, water quality improvement projects, WQIP, proposed for 2019 funding.
All right, our CPF Director, Lisa Combrink, will introduce this.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board. I'm Lisa Combrink, the CPF manager. As you know, earlier this year, the town issued a request for proposals, or an RFP, for our second round of water quality improvement projects. In April, shortly after I started, we began the interview process with the applicants or the respondees to the RFP. Those were discussed with the board at a work session some time ago, and tonight is our first public hearing on 4 proposed projects for your consideration. So I'd like to introduce now Long-Range Planner Janice Shearer, who is helping shepherd these projects through and has sat in with the Water Quality Advisory Board along with me on all the interviews for the requesters.
Good evening. How are you? So we have, as Lisa said, 4 of the applications. We had met on May 2nd briefly to discuss, kind of batching these, because they're in various states of refinement. These were the first 4 that we felt were ready for your consideration. One of them, I'll just briefly tell you what they are. You have them in front of you and on the wall. The first one is a proposal by Mill Pond Association, endorsed by the town trustees. As you know, the town of Southampton paid for Princeton Hydro to produce a report on the health and water quality of Mill Pond and propose suggestions to improve the quality of Mill Pond. And they are here to discuss that at length. Well, not too lengthy, but just give you kind of an overview and an explanation from the scientists themselves instead of me. So they would like to give you a brief presentation, which I will turn to them, just so that the audience and anyone watching this has the benefit of understanding what the proposal is all about. The next one is the Village of Southampton, which we have Gary Gillespie here as the superintendent of their public works. And this is another Lake Agawam project. There's a management plan for Lake Agawam where there's very succinct drainage improvements that will collect the first flush of stormwater runoff and drop out all those suspended solids that go right into the lake right now. And all those drainage improvements will go a long way toward the health of Lake Agawam. So this is another proposal in Railroad Plaza for these drainage improvements. The third, we have James Duryea here on behalf of the town trustees. This is just really an amendment of last 2018's project, which was an aquatic restoration project for Mecox Bay. As you know, the inlet is open right now. They opened the cut. There's a management plan that the town, Marty Shea and the trustees have worked very hard to work on to understand what the conditions need to be to open and close the cut. And to do that, they are in need of these monitoring stations and sensors that sense the salinity, dissolved oxygen, pH, all these variables that they will be able to know in real time that will inform those decisions. And as you approve this project, when they went out to scope it out, they realized they need 2 more to really understand the total effect on the entire water body. So this request is just 2 additional monitoring stations as part of that previous project. Another, the last one is for the Village of Sag Harbor. Last round, they were approved. There was, as we went into contract, we realized there was a mathematical error. So this is still the same project. It was just that the numbers didn't add up. They should have said 286. It said 264. We all went with 264. When we finally tried to go to contract and add it up, we were $22,000 short. So it was an oversight, an error on their part, an oversight on our part, but so that's a simple correction from the last round. So with that, I am here to answer any questions. You have the Water Quality Advisory Committee's recommendations, and I would like to allow Princeton Hydro folks to give you a brief presentation if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay.
Brief.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dr. Steve Souza, founder of Princeton Hydro, and with me is Chris Mikolajczak, certified lake manager and senior project manager at Princeton Hydro. Chris and I have worked together for 20 years doing lake restoration work. He's just handed out to you an outline of slides that I had made a PowerPoint presentation. I've left it here for town council for distribution to the public. Essentially what that handout does is it provides a synopsis of the study findings that was just mentioned, the Princeton Hydro study of Mill Pond. I'll cut to the chase. Basically, what we were able to identify both through water quality sampling and modeling of Mill Pond is that the majority of the phosphorus loading that is responsible for the algae blooms, particularly the cyanobacteria, the blue-green algae blooms that have impacted the water body over the years, is a function of carp in the pond. And essentially, what the data and what that presentation material basically encapsulates is that over the summer months, because of the activity of the carp, they disrupt the sediment. It's called bioturbation. It's essentially the resuspension of fine sediment. That in turn releases phosphorus into the water column, and that then in turn stimulates algae blooms. If you look at all of the data, what the data does show is that the timing of those releases are more significant in terms of stimulating blooms than either stormwater loading, which is an important source of phosphorus loading to Mill Pond, and something that does need to be corrected over time, and septic loading. But if you look at the timing of that phosphorus load, and there's a couple of graphs that show increases in chlorophyll A, increases in total suspended solids with relationship to time of year. You'll see that phosphorus concentrations, which are high, remain relatively uniform throughout the year, but suspended solids, or the turbidity, how muddy the water looks, and chlorophyll A, which is how green the pond gets at times because of algae, those peak in the summer. And the peaks are occurring in collaboration, let's call it, with carp activity. So again, sort of like cutting to the chase, the recommendations in the report were essentially threefold. Continue to support the town's efforts for stormwater management and septic management. Those are sources that need to be reduced. However, prioritize the removal of carp. And from a cost benefit and return on the investment approach, it's the most cost-effective approach. Now, this has been attempted in the past, or actually has been implemented in the past at Mill Pond. What our proposal is actually showing to do is to implement these large box traps. These traps are baited with cracked corn over time. They're roughly about the size of this room, about 10 by 30, a little bit smaller than this room, but about 10 by 30, 15 by 30. And you basically acclimate the carp to come to the nets. And then the nets are triggered, and this is done over a few days, over the course of a week or 10 days. And the return is very, very high, and it's almost totally selective for carp. So bycatch of game fish and other sensitive species is almost absolutely eliminated. There's a company out in Minnesota, Carp Solutions, that specializes in these traps, and they will rent them to the Mill Pond Association or to the town for use, and that was part of our proposal. Was to rent the nets, utilize them during the summer, and then remove carp. And part of the proposal is also to come in and do a fishery survey so we can get an assessment of the game fish and then have an idea on how best to reestablish the overall fishery of the lake. The importance of that is that once we increase the predators, particularly bluegill, sunfish, and young of year, largemouth bass, they'll feed on the carp eggs and on carp young of year. Obviously, when the carp get this big, there's not many fish that can take them down. But it is an effective way. But what's happening now is that there's no vegetation in the lake due to the carp bioturbation, the suspension of the sediment. So part of the project also calls for the installation of floating wetland islands. Those have phosphorus removal capabilities, and that's is in the Water Quality Improvement Protection Plan. Talks about the benefits of floating wetland islands, but they also provide habitat. So we can get a quick infusion of habitat, and over time, as the carp densities go down, then we can start to reestablish actual aquatic vegetation within the sediment. But right now, you just can't do it, I mean, because of the amount of disturbance that occurs. So long and short of it, we know that we have a problem with the carp. We know that we have a way to manage that. We know that the carp are the primary source of phosphorus loading to the lake. Less phosphorus loading, less algae blooms. So this all goes hand in hand with the efforts of the town, Mill Pond Association, DEC, to reduce harmful algae blooms. So we see it as a really good program. We haven't done this type of carp removal in the past. I mean, these baited trap nets are relatively new. And I have downloaded a number of papers and I've spoken with the suppliers, and we have provided links to those papers and those sources of information. But they do work, and they work pretty efficiently compared to some of the standard approaches. In terms of what to do with the fish that are captured, we are making arrangements with local fishermen that will take them and use them for bait. If any of you have followed just some recent developments with NOAA and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, there's a added restriction being placed on the harvesting of herring. That's going to affect lobster fishermen in particular, and the carp provide an alternative. So we have done this in the past with fishermen that have come and taken the carp, or organic farmers that will take the carp and utilize those fish as fertilizer. So there's ways to effectively get rid of the fish that are harvested, from the pond. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. As I said, the PowerPoint goes through a lot of detail. Same thing with the slides. There's a ton of data that I tried to infuse within those handouts. But I can take questions if you have questions about our report or the direction that we're proposing to take with the grant.
Any questions?
I got one. Any idea how many tons of carp are in there?
Biomass.
Yeah, the biomass, based on the 2012 removal, if you look at the return on effort, it was pretty, I wouldn't say unsophisticated. I mean, you had limitations on the type of netting, the nets that were used. And there were 6,000 pounds of carp that were removed in a relatively short amount of time with relatively inefficient equipment. So we haven't estimated how many are in there, but what we did do, if you had gone through our report, I used pretty low coefficient of phosphorus loading due to bioturbation, pretty low on that scale. So I can't venture to say how many tons are in there, but from the 2012 effort, it looks like there's more fish in there than far more fish than need to be. I wish I could be more definitive than that.
Understood.
Okay. And I should point out also that DEC has issued an approval, or authorization rather, to the town to remove carp. And that authorization remains in effect for Mill Pond, Agawam Lake as well, until 2023. So the authorization is already in place for that. And we have filed for a permit to do the fishery survey, which would be like a post-removal fishery survey. And then we can make assessments. We're waiting for DEC to turn that around. But it's a basic scientific collector's permit, and we get those on a routine basis. We don't see a problem with getting that permit.
Other questions?
Yeah, the meeting is being televised, just so we know the carp is an invasive species.
It's an invasive
And they're
species.
probably for fishing, or somebody emptied their fish tank, or?
Probably, and
No.
they are prolific, but yes, I mean, they're non-native invasive species, and how they make it in, I mean, the eggs are sticky, they stick to waterfowl, that's another way they can get in, or people dump a fish tank or bait. A lot of times it's bait.
Just to add to that, if we do a typical fishery survey,
Come up to the mic, I'm sorry.
just to add to that, if we do a typical fishery survey, the DEC requires that any carp, koi, or goldfish are not restocked. You have to dispose of them because of the invasive nature.
Thank you.
So I had one question. Your report is quite comprehensive, and I have
Thank
read it. Tried to make sense of some of it where I could. The one issue, the question I have, I don't have an issue with it. I think we had a long, and for the public's benefit, we've had a long work session earlier, last year actually, I think it was, that going through this over time. My question is relative to the phosphorus. So we see phosphorus loading in freshwater bodies, and the issues of phosphorus in freshwater bodies as opposed to emptying into saltwater bodies. And I noticed that you actually had a flat line on phosphorus, and it's mostly bound to whatever element's on the bottom of the sediment that's on the bottom of the lake, and the fish stir that up, and that's causing the problem. Do you have any idea of what the actual, is that a consistent loading because there is a decrease in loading, or is there still a large amount of phosphorus that's being committed to the lake through sediment-borne stormwater?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. So basically, number one, if you look at the phosphorus concentrations that are measured in Mill Pond, they are actually almost an order of magnitude greater than what you would find in most freshwater lakes. We're dealing with concentrations that are up around 114, 130 milligrams, parts per million. Those are really high numbers. I mean, typically, we're dealing with 0.4, 0.2, 0. So now we're down like in milligrams per liter, like 0.02, 0.04, instead of 115, 120. So those are really, really high numbers. If you look at the amount of phosphorus if you look at the concentrations of phosphorus that comes in via septic or via stormwater, those concentrations are much lower and they're pulsed. So the significance of, if you go to that, I think it's on maybe about the 4th or 5th page, there's some curves that show the phosphorus sort of like flatlined, but very high, and then changes in chlorophyll A and suspended sediment. Those suspended sediment concentrations, again, are an order of magnitude higher than what we normally see in lakes and ponds, and the chlorophyll A concentrations are through the roof. I mean, in April, I was out here of last year, and we were at 40, and normally 40 is like about as green as this chair, and that's unheard of in April. So when you look at the amount of development that has occurred in the watershed and the amount of development that exists right now, those don't equate to the amount of phosphorus that is being measured in the lake. And those curves are significant because basically what it does show you is that as the fish activity increases, then the suspended sediments go up. That's releasing or helping to release some of that bound phosphorus, make it mobile and available for phytoplankton to utilize, and that's why the chlorophyll numbers start to go up. So basically, there's a really tight loop there. And this has been documented in other water bodies that are impacted by carp. But to answer your question directly, this is what makes the carp problem the most significant. It's an egregious amount of loading, and it's all internal. So if you can reduce that and keep those sediments in place, and that's the point of getting the vegetation reestablished, we can significantly reduce that. Another point in that data, I don't want to go too much longer for you, but you'll notice that if you look at the dissolved oxygen and temperature data, measured in April and then measured in September. So at both ends, the bookends of the growing season, uniform temperature from surface to bottom, and good dissolved oxygen from surface to bottom. What that tells us as limnologists is that the lake is not stratified, which means it's not subject to what you see in a lot of water bodies where you get a lot of internal release that's just a function of chemistry. We don't see that. So what that says is you don't need to aerate. Aerating the pond is not going to resolve the problem because the conditions that would require aeration don't exist in Mill Pond. So all those factors start to go hand in hand, and when you look at it, you say, yeah, we have to pay attention to this carp problem. If we don't, we're going to be left with this same problem.
Thank you.
All right.
So is this a long-term solution? I mean, how prolific are these carp? If you remove, I don't know what percentage you're removing some percentage. Is it going to be back as, with their turbation a year from now, or?
Yeah, well, and it's, I think initially what we're looking to do with the traps is remove a high number of fish. Now, how many are we going to be able to get, what percentage? I'm not sure. Would this have to be an ongoing operation? Probably at a reduced scale over time. Carp are pretty, you find them in just about every pond and lake, but their numbers can be kept in check. And that's the whole goal, is to try to get their numbers down so they can be held naturally in check. And that can't be done unless you've got the game fish. And you can't get the game fish unless you have spawning and nursery habitat for the game fish. And right now, you don't have that,
Oh, I see.
that spawning habitat.
So you're sort of reestablishing an ecosystem.
Exactly. But over time, probably you can go back and use the gill nets and the less, the more, I would say, manual labor intensive type of capture methodology as opposed to the trap nets. The trap nets will give you a good initial return on the investment, and then you can go to some of these, these
How
less.
do you pull the trap net? It sounds you described it as like 15 by 30.
Right. Once
It
the-
sounds like it could have 10,000, 50,000 pounds of fish.
They
in
do.
it.
You have to go take a look at these videos.
You need
It's
a crane to
outstanding.
pull it out, or what?
No, that's when you need a bunch of volunteers that basically net it, to put it into john boats. The john boats go to the shore. They get offloaded into trucks. But if you look at the videos, you'll see that, once the sides come up, then it's a function of netting them out. I have seen some operations where they come in with a front-end loader and do it that way as well. But the majority of them, it's volunteers that come in or fishery biologists like we have that go in and net them out. It's labor intensive at that end, but you're not chasing the fish around as you would with gill nets or some of the small fyke nets.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, I have one card, so why don't you hold off, Steve? Let me take the card that I have, and then I'll come back to you. So, Gary, you're up. You filled out a card. Gary Gillespie from the village.
I do have a larger print of, I think, what you have in your books. Should I display that somewhere? Plan of our drainage, or are you sufficient with what you have?
You want to, maybe somebody, Janice, can you help him spread it out? Maybe put it on the wall there? Yeah, you can go over there.
Can I make a suggestion? Maybe you want to hear the public testimony on Mill Pond? and
No, we'll just take them all.
Or you want to go all, do all?
I want to do the cards, and then we'll go to general public. Okay.
Sure, whatever you want to do.
My plan's a little simpler than the previous one. Of course, I'm here for the Village of Southampton, and first, I'd like to thank your board and the CPF Advisory Board for last year's funding that we just completed on Job's Lane in Southampton. Job's Lane and Meeting House, we put a number of structures there to take pressure off Lake Agawam, and I haven't seen a 2-inch rainfall yet, but we're about a 1-inch rainfall. We've actually dried up one pipe that leads into the lake. That would be the Job's Lane corridor, along with the O'Connell Drive parking lot where the village did some previous drainage. But I've enjoyed going down to that playground and looking at that pipe and seeing nothing come out of it. So thank you for that. And of course, I'm back for more, as most people would be. We are looking at Railroad Plaza at this point. The plan that you have, that you're seeing here, is basically 15 leaching pools and 4 catch basins. When I met with your advisory board, they asked us to include Fabco inserts. So the 4 catch basins will get Fabco inserts, which will take out all the trash as it goes in, as well as canisters to take out any of the contaminants that would leach through the filters.
This is all, that's the train station?
This is the train station, and if you're looking at the train station and Our Lady of the Hamptons School, this area here in question where the drainage is an open culvert.
Right.
It's been a little bit dangerous through the years. We've had a number of cars in there. So this proposal would have the drainage go through that entire culvert. That culvert would then get capped. It would no longer be a trough, per se. It would just be covered, would all be lawn. We'd be bringing a curb line out to the north of it. And from that north side there, we would like to then take our double yellow, move that to the north, and we'd like to create about 16 parking spaces for any increased traffic at the railroad.
How does that work with the new, I see when you're driving by Our Lady of the Hamptons, they have that new area that they're going into their, is that going to stay there as an entrance?
Yes.
How's that going to work with the?
We actually work with them. SFA, Delalio is their contractor, who also holds the town contract, who we would use for this project, because we can piggyback off the contract. They did the work there, and what we asked them to do is put 2 smaller pools in a pipe that go under the existing driveway. And then we were planning on the future of coming and connecting our system to that.
How will it work with the parking? Like if you're coming out there and now you have,
Well, we will have to have proper setbacks of probably about 30 feet for line of sight on either side. And here, we would probably get 2 to 3 parallel parking stalls. And then on up here, once we move the double yellow line to the north, we would have straight-in parking here, just like we have on the north side.
So how are you removing the sediment that you're collecting?
Well, the sediment would actually go into catch basins.
Okay, and then you're emptying those at some period of time?
Correct. The village has a vac truck,
And
just
the
like the
village is
town.
handling that?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Right. Now, this would be the first application of the Fabco inserts, with
Yeah, I'm kinda
talked with the
anxious to see how that's
salesman
gonna
quite a
work.
bit, but we've never used them, so this would be our first time.
That storm drain or French drain, it goes beyond that point. It goes all the way down to where Elm Street, all the way down to Elm Street. But
Correct.
you seem to stop the project at that point, right?
What we have in this parking area of the railroad, we already have drainage in there. The village installed about 20 years ago. So in here, there are 3 catch basins, with each one has about 3 8x10 drains in there that take a lot of that water, but the water does come from Elm Street down. It also, comes from Powell
There's
Avenue down.
Like a drain in there.
Correct, there is an open trough here.
Isn't it though a little bit closer to, what's the road? Is it Powell?
This is Maple here, Powell
is
continues, and then Elm Street is
Right,
here.
so it's closer to Powell. There's a depression there. It
yeah, because
goes-
the water gathers there.
Yeah, right where you're seeing all these cars parked, there is a depression that goes all the way
Is that
around.
where it is? Okay.
Just make it out. This project doesn't do any of that because we have drainage in that area already. And this all has parking bumpers there that stop cars from going in. Just down here, right, there's nothing right now, so.
Can I ask in terms of the funding of this, you mentioned a whole bunch of things that are not water quality related, like parking spaces and shoulders and things like that. As far as like I understand it, the CPF funds really can only be used for those elements that are water quality related. Is that the way the project's broken down?
Yes, any parking that would be brought in would be striped by the village and maintained by the village.
And
And
currently,
obviously, they'll look at, like, because that stop sign's right there, so if you're going to make that right, if you've got cars there and you're coming out, it's hard to.
What are you talking here?
Yeah, west of the egress, ingress, not east so much, because it's traveling this way.
Yeah, we have a VHB engineer
Yeah.
who's going to help us draw up the
Making me
parking
nervous.
spaces.
Okay.
So
That's one.
that's kind of just an additional benefit to actually filling this area in. I just thought I would just, mention it as part of.
No, this is not, I just want to differentiate this from like a stormwater mitigation project, floodwater mitigation versus a environmental remediation type of project. So, controlling floodwaters is a noble goal, but not what the CPF should be used for, right? So CPF
You can use it.
should be used
It's used for
primarily.
stormwater runoff.
And also, they're doing
Yeah.
sediment catchment, which is contributory to Lake Agawam, so it's, it's absolutely clear to me.
Currently, where does the stormwater on this road go?
It ends up in Lake Agawam.
Okay. It's piped through culverts down to Lake Agawam because it's
Yeah,
pretty
it-
far away from,
It heads down to North Main Street, then to Bowden Square, then to Windmill Lane, and ends up in Lake Agawam.
okay, yeah.
Now, we have other projects in other areas that, contribute to that same flow. This is just pulling more of it off there. And really, the most environmental.
You're adding a filtration element to it.
Yes, the Fabco cartridge inserts
Right.
there. So that's really, for the most part, that's taking a lot of the solids out. The solids go into the catch basins anyway, but this will be taking the floatables out, and the cartridges would then take, any of the bio out.
So ultimately, the water still makes it to Lake Agawam. That's where it's going to end up, but it'll be purified before it gets there,
Well,
filtered.
we're actually hoping to take a lot of this water, because we do still have a water catch up here, a lot of drainage in here. We're hoping by adding these 15 structures out, and again, in about a 1-inch rainfall, I think we're going to zero out, hopefully a 2-inch rainfall, we're going to zero that water out. And you're not going to see it leave this area.
It's going to recharge, though.
Yes.
Right, so then it goes to the water table, which I'm sure wells up into Lake Agawam eventually.
Well, yes, but a good distance away.
Right, but it's not dumping directly in with hydrocarbons and other contaminants.
It's primarily phosphorus is your issue and your sediment.
Yeah, phosphorus and nitrogen. Right, and then again, of course, we're very happy our truck is up and running. We've been down for about 45 days. But we do have a truck that runs out there 5 days a week and hits all these basins that we clean them out, dewater them, and then take it up to the landfill.
Any other questions for Gary?
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
just
Oh,
one, how
sorry.
often do you change the filters? I mean, I know that you go check them on a monthly, yearly.
Well, we would go and check for the solids, so, probably, every, 2 or 3 months, we would go and look at them all. Bill Reitzig of Fabco suggested that the filters would be about once a year.
Where you change them out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks.
John, do we clean them?
I'm sorry?
Do we clean them as well?
Supposed to.
All right, Steve, you want to come up?
Good evening. Steve Abramson, representing Mill Pond Association and Watermill CAC with regard to this effort to remediate Mill Pond. Wanted to thank everybody for their attention and their help, and for the initial start that Supervisor Schneiderman started with regard to the research project, which is leading us in the proper direction for remediation. What I wanted to add at this point is that, and I believe it was you, John, who raised the question, it might have been Tommy John, about is the carp the only answer, or are there other contaminants that are coming in through road runoff, et cetera? John. So indeed there are, and it's a major factor. And I'd like you to think about something down the line, because we need buffers badly around all of our water bodies to protect them. And this can't be done voluntarily. Now, I've certainly tried many, many times over the years to impress upon neighbors and people who surround Mill Pond to put them in voluntarily. It won't happen. And yet we know this is a major human event, a problem that can be resolved. So I'm asking that you give some thought to what's really difficult, I think, sometimes for government to do, and that is to insert itself to make it mandatory that we have buffers around our water bodies. I think that's important, not just for Mill Pond, but for the bays as well. But if you wanted to start small, so to speak, you might develop an environmental overlay district for Mill Pond and just contain it to that area as a mandatory area to be done. And we'll have to talk about, of course, how we get it done, how we finance it, what kinds of incentives have to be done. But perhaps by leading in that way, we can make it happen, because you can't leave it to the individuals who feel that it's the moral thing to do, it's the right thing to do, but they're not about to go do it themselves. It's kind of like paying your taxes. You don't really want to do it, but you know you got to do it. But somebody told you you had to do it, or else maybe you wouldn't do it, or maybe you would avoid it. So I look back to the penman of the Revolution for this one, Thomas Paine, who expressed these wise words in Common Sense. Here then is the origin and rise of government, namely, a mode rendered necessary by the inability of moral virtue to govern the world. Because if we could do this by moral virtue alone, it would have been done. And I think it's going to be necessary for us to have to mandate buffers around our water bodies to protect them and to remediate them all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love the quote.
All right, anyone else who wishes to be heard who did not fill out a card on this, the third public hearing? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
No, you want to keep it
Do
open?
you want? Oh,
All right, second by Councilwoman Sclera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to go to public portion now. This is a time when you can speak on any subject. So I only have one card. Again, the speaker or speakers are afforded 3 minutes to make their comments known. Michael Daly, you're up.
Good evening, and congrats on all of your accomplishments over the last year. The state of the town was a very positive thing to see. And thank you for tirelessly working with very little thanks. Why I'm here this evening, my name is Michael Daly. I'm a member of the Peer Next Gen Housing Collaborative, as well as East End YIMBY, which is an affordable housing advocacy group. And what I just gave to Kim is 60 letters signed by various local community members in support of the Concern for Independent Living village project that's been proposed for County Road 39 behind the Church of God. We've had local community members, community leaders, local clergy, local veterans, local educators, local business owners, as well as local business people and employees all sign these letters, who see this as a possible good step in helping contribute to our affordable housing crisis that we're in. Not contribute to the crisis, but contribute as a solution. You may have seen recently in the paper that Concern for Living was recently granted approximately $20 million in state funding for this project, even though it hasn't even gotten off the ground. That shows how enthused the state is about the possibility, one of 3 projects on Long Island that the state has granted funds to. It's $20 million out of the $28 million that this project is estimated to cost. That would also bring jobs to our local area. One of the things that is pending on this is that the contract that Mr. Fasano has with the Church of God, which is still in effect. I understand that Pastor Havrilla had passed, but Mrs. Havrilla, who we visited with, and James Boyd, who's working on this project, are still very enthusiastic about the possibility of this project moving forward. He has a contract that goes hard, as is said in the real estate business, at the end of June. And if we do not give him the support to at least accept his application and move forward, he can't put the additional $300,000 to $500,000 at risk. So he will rescind his application. He'll withdraw his application. And my concern is that that sends a message to the developers that we need to come and do things like this, that Southampton is not open for this type of business. And so I really would encourage you to think deeply and encourage you to just accept the application. You're not approving the project, you're just accepting the application so it can go forward. And the community will have plenty of time to give feedback. Already, Ralph has addressed 3 of the issues, such as coming through the hillside area. We've successfully discussed with the Southampton Center for Rehabilitation and Nursing about the use of the fire road behind there, which would preclude the use of hillside coming out, and they are very open. They're open to that.
Open to that.
Additionally, the classic NIMBY things all came out, density, they're all going to kill us, blah, blah, blah.
Michael, density, though, is a legitimate concern.
I understand.
That's not a NIMBY.
Oh, absolutely. But the question about who's going to live here, are we going to be surrounded by people who we don't know? 85% of the people on the Southampton roster for affordable housing are local people. So, and that's the people who will be drawn from in order to live in this location. And additionally, Ralph Fasano has said he's also open to talking about right-sizing the water treatment so that it could help water treatment in some local businesses, things like that. So Ralph is committed to doing this.
Is he interested in downsizing the size or right-sizing the?
Right-sizing, he has a water treatment.
Yeah, no, I know what he's talking about. I'm
Cluster
just
system,
asking,
yeah.
you're saying right-sizing, so
But
I'm
not
just
the number
using
of
it for the
units.
number of
He's-
units. Is he interested in right-sizing that to be more palatable to the community?
He's open to discussing it all, and he's happy to, but we can't even discuss it if we don't accept the application. We know there's going to be tons and tons of community input on this, and
Is there an application pending right now?
He was going to make one, and
Right,
we're not
and
happy with it.
we'd asked for him to go and,
The community.
talk to the community and
Exactly.
get some feedback.
Yeah,
and
he's
all
gone radio silent. He came here to a work session
yeah.
and presented, it was like, I think, a 60-unit proposal or something like that. If I reckon, and it had an access to the Hillcrest neighborhood, it had an access to the other neighborhood to the west of the project.
Right.
And then on County Road 39, and there was concerns about those access points. And we had sent him to go out to the community and see if there was community support and see if he could address those issues. And so I haven't heard a
Well,
peep from
you're
him
hearing,
since.
you're
The
hearing
next thing
it.
I thought he actually maybe abandoned the project, and then I read in the paper
No.
that he gets awarded, what, $20 million?
8.
How much?
8.9, I
8
thought it
million?
was.
I thought it was 8 too, but then Michael just said 20.
If you read the article, you'll see it'll amount to $20 million that will be paid up front with 10 years of tax credits. So he hasn't gone silent. He may not be calling you directly, but he's been working through myself, Diana. He's got
I was
a
expecting him
meeting.
to come back to us.
After he met with the
After he
community,
met
he
with
was
the
going to talk
community.
to them, and we'd asked him if he could take the density down. He said he could not. But we said, go to the community and speak to them. And he had a meeting, and there was at least like 40 people, I think, there. And he got some good feedback, and then nothing.
Well, he's ready to roll. And
He's got to come in.
Require a zone change. I mean, this is.
would it require a zone change? I know it's a complicated issue because it also borders the village as well as the town.
Right.
And some of that egress. But all of these things are discussable and, but not if we don't accept the application. So it's, that's what these letters are asking you to.
Well, we didn't want to talk about accepting the application until he met with the community, and we got a sense of whether there was a basic support for it.
Yeah.
So we wanted him to come back first, and then we could vote on accepting the application.
Would you like him to come back for another work session?
Yes, I
I'd
think.
like him to report back on what the community had to say, because
Okay.
that's the feedback he was supposed to give us, and if he's willing to bring down the density also, because if he's starting out saying, no, I'm not doing that, that's kind of, that's not a discussion item then, that's a given, which I know is not palatable
What's
to a lot
the,
of
it's
people.
5-acre piece.
It's a 5-acre piece.
He's looking
So
for
it's-
60, and you would get less than
He's
that.
looking for 12 units per acre.
Right.
Yeah,
So
the
the-
community definitely had some concerns, but you're saying that he's willing to address them.
Yeah, and I just delivered 60 letters to you from people who are enthused and excited about it, so.
And you're saying he would-
There's always two sides to every issue, and affordable housing brings out the NIMBYs quickly.
I've sat on many boards listening
Sure.
to all of that, so I totally get what you're saying.
You understand.
But you're saying that he was willing to work on the density and that he was willing to make it like a preference for local people?
Veterans, I think, too.
Veterans.
Workforce, attainable.
Local veterans or veterans?
And veterans.
Just not
15 units would be set aside for veterans.
There cannot be a geographic designation.
You mean?
That's what we keep being told,
Correct.
right, which is what we
That was
keep
already
being
played out in
told.
Huntington. And I did hear you correctly when you said that the cluster system, he would consider making it so it would take in wastewater from other surrounding areas, perhaps business.
That's certainly a conversation. There's different levels of size and expense that goes along with that, and perhaps if we could support him with some community preservation funds, we could maybe do some really good work there for water quality. The Suffolk County originally asked him if he would size it to accommodate the local businesses, such as the Beverage Barn and the other businesses on the other side. And the thing about that is that adds, just to do that, adds $1 million to the cost. So being a not-for-profit organization, he has to be sensitive about cost. So our discussion was perhaps we could support that with some community preservation funds, and then even include the Hillcrest area in terms of tying into that. But that's all to be done during the discovery process and the conversation with the boards, and that will see it. But if we don't accept the application, he just goes away, and we've lost another developer who maybe could help us.
Well, I just texted our planning department, we haven't had an application in front of us, so, it's difficult to even comment on it, and I appreciate everything you're saying. And,
Okay.
when we originally had the conversation with them, we said you have a period of time to invest in compromising and working out so that the neighborhood was in agreement with it. That's sort of the Spionk Common model that we use. And, I would hope that they would.
Well, we have a two-step process. So
Yeah.
we have a work session on whether to accept an application, and then if we accept an application, then of course we have public hearings on the application itself. But there's that earlier step, which is
Right,
sort of
which hasn't-
unusual.
yeah.
Well, no, it sort of happened. We did have a work session.
It's normal
and,
with the changes. On it.
But we had sent him back, we weren't ready to vote on it, we sent him back to the community.
Okay.
So we haven't decided yet whether we'll accept an application. That's what you're sort of.
Correct, and that's what I'm here to do, is to present 60 letters from community members, veterans, clergy, business owners, et cetera, encouraging you to accept that application so
I think we wanna
the
hear
process
from
can,
Mr. Fasano.
And the community he spoke with.
if you'd like to, sure.
Is it possible to get the addresses of a number of people that just wrote their names?
Because we'd already had.
I might be able to do that, but some of them, no, I don't know.
There's a significant amount without addresses.
Sure.
Just-
Yeah, I think that in the future, we'll ask that people put their
Somehow,
addresses
just a
down
lot.
as well, yeah. Another thing is, again, he has an end-of-June deadline. He's meeting also with Southampton Village in a work session to present what he's doing.
When is that, do you know?
That is being scheduled for sometime during the month of June. And he is also, we've also scheduled a tour of Liberty Landing for Wednesday, June 5th, for anyone in the community who would like to go see it. I went and saw it myself. I took the day and went and saw it, and I was so impressed by the level of detail in the community, by the people that I met, by his operations, by the common area facilities with workout rooms and television rooms. And I met some people that were really very, very appreciative of it. So, you know, this type of housing is what we need in our community for our young people, for our employees, and for our veterans. And you know, again, this is not about approving the project. This is about just accepting an application. And I'd like to encourage you to seriously do that. And if we need to get Ralph to come back, we'll do it. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, anyone else who wishes to be heard? That was the only card. All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to close public portion.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, to the agenda. Do we want to take anything out of order?
Everybody left that was here for that, so I don't think we need to.
They've left, and do we have the resolution on for the CPF?
I think Janice said it was here.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay, well, Steve's here, we can do the CPF one if it's in here.
I don't see it.
No, I don't think there's a, that's for the CPF. It's
Yeah, because she
it's in
said just
here.
to close it.
Right.
Yeah, we just closed it. There's no resolution for it.
Steve, it's not on.
I don't think this is, oh wait, yeah, this was just the public hearing, we don't
Right.
have an adoption
We don't have
resolution.
a notice of adoption yet
I don't think so.
for
Or not, right?
all the
what
projects.
you
You're
spoke
welcome
on.
to stay if you
If you
want.
want.
I was gonna try to
That's what
take it
we're
out of
asking
order if it was in the packet, but,
Yes. Yeah, we closed the hearing, so it should come forward. Did we close it?
Yeah, we did.
Yes. So it should be at the next town board meeting.
It's not there.
right.
I'm pretty sure.
You think it's in
I
it?
didn't remember seeing
Could
it.
be wrong.
I looked, I didn't see
We're gonna
it.
look one more time.
Never mind.
Oh, no, you're right, last one.
You see it? No, that's just the hearing
That's the
notice.
hearing. Nope.
We're going to be fast anyway. We get to it.
All right, let's just go.
Yeah.
Okay, so 473 of 19, resolution of adoption to amend Town Code Section 247-27 to increase the number of members on the Ag Advisory Committee to from 11 to 12. I'm going to withdraw that, so Kim, consider that withdrawn.
The walk-ons before we...
Oh, you want to add the walk-ons to the packet? That's a good idea. All right, so let's amend our agenda to add some additional resolutions. We actually have 10 walk-ons. 31922 authorizes continuation of advertising and marketing campaign for Southport Community Connection. 31923 authorizes supervisor to execute management and stewardship agreement with Wildwood Bowling 16 Inc. for the property located at 3939 Lake Avenue in Northampton. 31927 is the warrant number 10. 31928 releases maintenance bonds in connection with site plan application of Suburban Exterminating in Riverside. 31929 releases maintenance bond in connection with site plan application of B&B Ventures 4 LLC Bridgehampton. 31930 authorizes supervisor to sign right of entry agreement with the Air National Guard. 31932 road review application for 55 June LLC 900-123-4-25.1 situated in Flanders is accepted. 31933 authorizes expenditure from Parks Donation Restricted Account. 31934 authorizes the purchase of mobilization, excavation, concrete, and asphalt materials and other related site work from Deal Concrete Corporation for Old Ponquag Bridge Fishing Pier. 31937, notice of public hearing regarding unsafe and dangerous conditions at the premises located at 706 Patrick Street in West Hampton. All right, there's 10 resolutions. I'm making a motion to walk all 10 on.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll add those at the end.
619.
All right, so we are up to 619 on page 5 of your packet. Authorizes Second Amendment to the intermunicipal agreement between the town of Southampton and the village of West Hampton Beach regarding the purchase of fuel.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 620 of 19 authorizes the purchase of 8 Ford Utility Police Interceptor all-wheel drives from New York State. OGS contract with Bayer Ford LLC. It's co-sponsored with Councilman Scalera.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2019-621 to authorize the renewal of Proof Point through NYSOGS contract with Software House International, SHI.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 622 of 19 authorizes the supervisor to execute a reimbursement services agreement with Preferred Group Plans, Inc., hereafter referred to as the Preferred Group.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 623 of 2019, I would like to withdraw it and substitute Town Board Resolution 31926, which is in your packet.
In the walk-on
That's
packet?
on the walk-on.
Yeah,
It's a
so,
substitution.
Okay.
Right,
all
the
right.
walk-on packet.
So just read the title of it.
Okay, authorize the supervisor to renew the town's maintenance agreement with Max Vault LLC N/K/A Printer Logic Incorporated. We didn't include the entire company name as well.
All right, so we'll take that as a motion to substitute
Second.
the resolution, seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. And you want to make a motion to approve the, I guess it's,
Yeah, I move that we approve 319926 as written in the walk-on packet.
Second.
seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 624 of 2019, authorizing the supervisor to sign a 2019 agreement with Know Before the Information Technology Department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. Motion by Councilman Scavone, seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 625 of 2019, authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Viacom Computer Services Incorporated for security analysis and associated reporting, remediation, assistance, and a post-remediation security analysis.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Resolution 626 of 2019 authorizes the supervisor to sign a sole source contract with General Code LLC for services for the town clerk's office. Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 627 and 19, awards and authorize the supervisor to execute a new 5-year contract with Coastal Science Engineering for professional services to provide condition surveys and monitoring for beach erosion control districts.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
2019-628, award and authorize the supervisor to sign contract for Baycrest Avenue Access Project.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
2019-629, award and authorize supervisor to sign a contract with Jackson Dodds and Company, Inc. to provide maintenance on trails in Southampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 630 of 2019, award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Grade A Petroleum for oils, lubricants, and grease.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 631 of 19, co-sponsored by Councilwoman Lofstad. Awards and authorizes supervisor to execute contract with Skyrise, Inc. for property cleanup to bring properties back into compliance.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 632, which is a full board sponsored resolution, authorizes the supervisor to execute a contract with Marty Martin Petrovic, PhD, and Thomas Gambarari to commence a technical review of years 2011 through 2018 based on the 2013 amended groundwater monitoring plan for the Savannah Golf Course.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution, oh, am I there? Yeah. Town Board Resolution
Yeah.
Town Board Resolution 219-633, to authorize the supervisor to sign a second amendment to a lease agreement with New York SMSA Limited Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless on space on cell tower located at Suffolk County Tax Map 224-06-36.1, known as 18B Ponquag Avenue in Hampton Bays.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 2019-634 authorizes supervisor to execute 2019 Youth Bureau agreements with Tuesdays on the Go venues.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 219-635 is the 2019 notice to bidders for creation of an overflow parking lot at the Long Island Railroad in Hampton Bays.
Second.
Well, seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 636 and 19, it's bond authorization of $4 million for the Hampton Bays Community Center.
Need a roll call.
This will require a roll call. Let me just say, I do need a second, though.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. So this is so that we had already put $5 million aside in bonding. This is additional $4 million, which will give us all the money we need to purchase it, as well as some money to renovate the additional space so that it's usable for town purposes.
It's also important to note that the additional amount that we're going to be bonding for, the debt service on that is actually less than the rent we were paying
Right.
for the year, so it actually winds up.
Right, from the budgetary perspective, even though it's more than we had hoped to pay,
Yeah.
it's still
Contract.
cash
Still less than what we
positive
were
for
paying.
us,
And we'll have more usable space.
and we'll have more space. So. Well, we'll own it too, we'll have a sense of permanency
Own
too,
it.
which is important. So I do need a roll call, Kim?
Supervisor Schneiderman.
Yes?
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Yes.
Councilwoman Scalera.
Yes.
Councilman Bouvier.
Aye.
Councilman Scavone.
Yes.
Okay, so that needed 4, it had 5, so that is approved. All right, we are at, I think, 637 of 19, amends the 2019 adopted budget for CPF.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 638, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, amends the 2019 adopted budget for Flanders Street Lighting District.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 639 amends the 2019 adopted budget for highway pay-as-you-go.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. This was basically proceeds from an auction of surplus highway equipment being reapplied back to their equipment line. So seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 640 amends the 19 adopted budget for the town attorney.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 641 and 19 amends the 19 adopted budget for various departments.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 642 of 19 amends the 2019 through 23 capital budget for North Sea Park improvements.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 643 of 19 authorizes the transfer of unclaimed apron bond funds to the operating budget for the general fund.
I'm going to abstain on that. Do you get a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstention.
Approved. 644 of 19 recalls and amends Town Board Resolution 617 of 19, amending the 2019 through 23 capital budget for the Hampton Bays Community Center.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 219-645 to appoint Helen Russell to the Sustainability Southampton Green Advisory Committee.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 646 and 19 authorizes additional funds for David Arnston, Esquire, of the law offices of Thomas M. Vols, PLLC, for all matters involving sand, land, and/or wainscot sand and gravel.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scavone. Councilwoman Scalera. It's getting late. Scalera. It's got the same start. That's good. Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 647 of 2019 is a resolution of adoption amending Town Code, Chapter 312-12, Vehicles and Traffic, to authorize stop signs at 2 intersections in the hamlet of Bridgehampton. And we saw this public hearing today.
Second.
This evening, rather.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 648 of 2019. This is resolution of adoption amending Town Code, Chapter 312-24, Vehicles and Traffic, to prohibit parking on Meadowlark Lane in the hamlet of Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. I'm glad we did that. We did say we were going to try to do that
Done.
when we
did the district.
Yeah, when we first did the district. So I'm glad that we were able to keep that promise. All right. 649 of 19, authorized grant application to New York State Regional Economic Development Council Downtown Revitalization Initiative, the DRI Round 4 for Riverside Revitalization. This is that $10 million
Second.
grant application for Riverside. Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I hope we get it this time.
Town Board Resolution 219-650 to recall and amend Resolution 219-609 for North Village Streetscape and Pedestrian Enhancement Project proposed by the Spianna-Remsenburg Civic Association.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. So was that, all right, we read that
Something
one.
about terms.
Okay.
Resolution 651 of 2019 is a resolution adjusting the tent fee for the Hampton Classic Horse Show.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
I approve it. 652 of 19, resolution confirming the town board's intent to file an application for permission of the state controller to establish an underground utility improvement district.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone.
Is this in relation to the one on Cliff Drive?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
This is, all in favor?
No. Abstain.
Aye.
Abstaining or no?
No.
No. Julie, are you a no?
Yes, I'm a no, correct.
Yes, you're a no. Okay, is it 3 yeses? Okay, so that is approved. So, yeah, the state controller, whenever we do these districts, have to approve the formula. Though I don't think this is just an
Yeah.
ad valorem formula, if I recall.
That's what I should recall.
Yeah. All right, 653, accepts retirement of Kimberly Roscoe, Office Assistant in Justice Court.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved, and congratulations to Kimberly Roscoe. Thank you for your service. 654 of 19 appoints Christopher Frazier to Bay Constable position in Southampton Town Police Department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're going to miss him in
Approved.
code enforcement.
Yes, we
Yeah.
Happy to have him on the PD.
Yeah, he'll do a great job there too, so congratulations to Chris. 655 and 19 appoints Evan Cortese to sanitation helper position in Municipal Works Waste Management Division.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Congratulations to Evan. go
Resolution,
ahead.
Resolution 2019-656, notice of public hearing to add Chapter 107 balloons to the town code.
Second.
Second, this is a hearing to prohibit the intentional release of helium balloons.
Yes,
Okay, and that's going to be June 11th.
June 11th, yes.
1 PM. So if it passes, we don't celebrate by releasing balloons, right?
Butterflies, bubbles,
Yeah,
those are good choices.
something like that. All right, did we vote? All
No, we
in
didn't.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
657 is a notice of public hearing. It's sponsored with Councilman Bouvier. Notice of public hearing to amend Town Code Chapter 31254, establishing seasonal parking by permit only on a portion of Long Neck Boulevard in Flanders.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 658 of 2019, notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312-36, Vehicles and Traffic, to extend the 3-hour parking area on School Street in the hamlet of Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 659, notice of public hearing to consider enacting a new town code, Chapter 178, establishing the East Quad Public Drinking Water Infrastructure Improvement Program.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Welcome.
Is that the last one of this? All right. Moving on to the walk-on packet. 31922, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, authorizes the continuation of the advertising and marketing campaign for the South Fork Commuter Connection Service.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. John?
Town Board Resolution 31923 to authorize the supervisor to execute a management and stewardship agreement with Wildwood Bowling 16 Incorporated for the property located at 3939 Lake Avenue in Northampton. This is
Second.
a continuation of a very successul program we started about 2 years ago, so.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 31927 is warrant number 10, capital 10, CPF number 10, and payroll liability.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Resolution 31928 releases the maintenance bond in connection with the site plan application of Suburban Exterminating in Riverside.
Second,
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Resolution 31929 releases a maintenance bond in connection with the site plan application of B&B Ventures for LLC in Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 31930, authorize the supervisor to sign right of entry agreement with the Air National Guard.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scalera. They're basically doing some off-site testing around Gabreski Airport on town-owned properties, looking for these perfluorinated, polyfluorinated compounds. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution ID 31932, road review application for 55 June LLC 0900-123.00-04.00-025.001, situated in Flanders, is accepted.
Second.
Can you say that again, John?
No.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, 31933, authorizes expenditure from park donation restricted account.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. It's for picnic tables, benches, and plaques. Where are they going? I guess they're various parks.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 31934, authorize the purchase of mobilization, excavation, concrete, and asphalt materials and other related site work from Deal Concrete Corporation for Old Ponquag Bridge fishing piers.
second,
Second by Councilman Lofstad. This is for that entryway to the Ed Warner Senior Fishing Pier, the old Ponquag Bridge. The entryway is all broken up, the asphalt, and it needs to be stabilized and redone. So All right, seconded by Councilman Musted, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
3-1.
Go ahead.
31937, notice of public hearing regarding unsafe and dangerous conditions at the premises located at 706 Patrick Street, West Hampton.
Second.
Second.
John, sorry,
All right,
John.
seconded.
John the second.
Nope, sorry.
Let John be the second.
Okay, second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Bouvier.
If you insist.
That's the only thing we've argued about, though.
That's an argument? Wow.
The only disagreement. No, you did vote against us. All right, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay, that's the end of our agenda. Any other business? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.